Yay.
Hey, Christian Metal Group. My name is Jimmy Sorrells. I'm one of the admins here for the group. We also have Jay,
Yes, I'm one of the moderators for the group.
moderator and a musician extraordinaire. And we got Mr. Colin, and he
Yep.
is, you're in the UK, correct?
Yep, that's it.
And he is the mastermind behind the band Wytch Hazel.
Yeah.
So Colin, tell us a little bit about your life, just kind of growing up in general. What was it like? Did you grow up in a religious type home or not? And then how did you kind of get into music?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very, very musical family. And a big part of that was we grew up in a Christian household. So we would go to church every Sunday, and my mum and dad were always involved in music and church. My dad plays the piano, and he plays, to be fair, he plays lots of different instruments. But he was always involved kind of on piano mostly, and my mum often singing in church. And it wasn't really, I started playing the drums when I was 6.
Oh wow.
And so music was quite encouraged in my household. I think one day I just came home and said I'd like to play drums. I'd played with some drums at school. My dad bought a drum kit, and it all kind of came together, and that was my first instrument. And it wasn't really that long, in a matter of a few years, where I was playing drums in church. And I feel like I still play drums in my church now. I've always played drums in church and really loved playing Christian music, particularly on drums. And I've played a guitar. I mean, I picked up guitar when I was 15, so much later. But yeah, so I grew up in a Christian household. We went to church every Sunday. It's a big part of our lives. But I wouldn't say I really made like an actual honest, real commitment until I was possibly around the age of 12 or 13, when we had kind of like summer camps where things felt a lot more relevant, and it felt like we were being spoke to as young people. And it felt more like, oh right, this is for me as an individual, rather than church is something I go to. So that was a big thing for me. I remember going to Christian camps, and they were amazing. And I just distinctly there was lots of things that were really significant about those camps. But one of the things was, it just felt as though when you went there, it was the people that were there made it how do I describe it? If I compare it to being at school and being just kind of in the world and around, and then you went there and it was like some sort of haven, and you couldn't quite put your finger on it, and it was because of the people, and you were surrounded by these people. And I just really kind of, ever since, have just kind of loved being around Christians. I mean, to be honest, like in a similar way to your family, Christians can be quite annoying sometimes as well. There's frustrating things about that, but that's just a family thing, isn't it? But I've always kind of had a magnetic attraction to how are these people affected by their faith, and just a really big part of that has been, these people are different, and these people actually genuinely. Obviously it's not always that way, but on the whole, and my Christian experience has been in church, people are just different, just very distinctly different than lots of other people. And that isn't to say there isn't tons of lovely people who are not Christians, and lots of whom are my friends now. But there's something distinctly different about church and Christianity, and so that was quite formative for me, starting in the camps and being involved with. I mean, to be honest, mostly through music. Even on those camps, it wasn't long before I was playing drums at the camps. It wasn't long before we connected with lots of different youth groups, and we'd have all the youth groups coming together for a monthly event, and I was involved in the music on guitar and drums. So that's really, I've been surrounded by music and church and ensembles as on a whole. As a band throughout high school, I played in all the jazz bands and I sung in the choir. I played in orchestras, played in brass bands, done competition level brass bands. I've done lots of different type of things, particularly when I was in high school and university. I studied music at university. I did it in high school. It's kind of a way of life. It's very much kind of who I am, who I feel like been made to be. And so, yeah, I mean, in Wytch Hazel was kind of formed when I was in university. Yeah, so when I was in university, I kind of soon met someone with an Iron Maiden t-shirt who liked the same music, and we formed a band together.
Hey, that's so awesome, man. You see that in the wild, you see an Iron Maiden shirt, and you're like, all right, we need to talk, right? I mean,
Right, right.
that's
Oh
how the
yeah,
metal world is, man. It's
that's
awesome.
exactly how it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important. Yeah, it's you just instantly know. Right, okay, we've got something instantly in common. I know, and we did.
Yeah, it's
And,
like
yeah,
if you saw a black guy wearing
well,
a Metallica shirt, you might be like, "All right, what's up?" Which
Right.
Jay has on right now.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So what did you study in university?
so I studied a subject called music practice, but the second year that I studied it, I mean, my degree name didn't change, but it was updated to contemporary music,
Oh,
which is the same course, but it was actually a more accurate name for what we were doing because we did a lot of experimenting, lots of kind of quite wacky things. And in hindsight, some of it at the time, lots of us struggled with it because we thought it was kind of quite pretentious at times, and we thought it was quite like, what are we paying this amount of money to hit chairs and record it and stuff? And but actually, in hindsight, some of that was relatively formative in a musical sense. Lots of it was it was quite interesting to just experiment with sounds. You don't have to just copy and paste what other people have done. And I've liked that. And to be honest, I don't make particularly unconventional music, but I think the way that musical experimentation um, reveals itself isn't always in an avant-garde, experimental, contemporary way. It sometimes can be in really subtle ways. For example, like Jimi Hendrix using guitar feedback in his music. It's really musical, but it's also quite experimental and but sounds quite natural. And so, yeah, it was definitely particularly maturing after university. I think I probably did the right degree actually, even though it was a bit frustrating and pretentious at times.
yeah.
Wow. Super cool. So as far as the band is concerned, what instrument did you start out on, like as far as being in the band, and what were your roles in the band? Like, did you just do songwriting, as far as were you a primary songwriter, or did you play drums in the first album or whatever else?
Yeah, yeah. Good question actually, because we're quite unique in Wytch Hazel. I mean, relatively unique. You do hear about, for example, Black Sabbath is Tony Iommi's band essentially, even though everyone contributes. Or Ian Anderson being kind of really the driving force behind Jethro Tull. I think we're probably a lot closer to that. But I don't. It's definitely the setup, and it's kind of been a bit like that since day one. Has been it's still been a band, but I've been very much the driving force behind pretty much every aspect, how the band is managed. I've always done all the songwriting. I kind of record all the demos. So essentially, the way it's kind of worked, and you do need someone to drive things forwards, otherwise it doesn't drive forwards. And so the way it's kind of worked, and people have been mostly happy on the whole, who've been members of the band over the years, with say, look, I've got a new song, it's finished, so let's learn it.
Right.
And that's kind of, and it kind of felt quite natural because, it was kind of, I named the band, and wrote the first couple of songs, and that was kind of really, that gave a taste of what was to come, really, those first two songs. But yeah, I recorded, I think I definitely recorded drums and at least one guitar, and vocals and bass on the first demo. I think I'm not sure whether Josh played guitar on the first.
How,
I
how
can't
many
remember.
how many instruments do you play?
So I play drums, guitar, piano.
Okay.
Um, So that they're kind of my main instruments, really. I don't really play any other instruments. I
Okay.
mean, and to be honest, piano is not my strongest instrument. I kind of have some strange limitations. I can play piano quite well, but I can't play in all the different keys. So
Oh,
I have to use transpose buttons on the keyboard and things like that.
transpose. Oh, no,
So
not the transpose button. No, I'm just playing.
That's Jay's instrument of choice there. He's the master
Yeah.
keyboardist. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keyboards, and of course I play drums too. But yeah, there's definitely like it's an ongoing joke in the keyboardist community about people that use the transpose button. But I mean, especially when you're in the studio doing stuff, I mean, it's like, do what works for you, for sure.
yeah,
And I
it's the
think,
thing. If I worked harder, I probably could play in all the different
oh yeah,
keys.
no, you're good. I mean, you can't argue with the quality of the finished product, and that's what matters the most.
Yeah, yeah. It's very much a tool. Like keyboard is very much a songwriting tool. I have a piano in my house as well.
Mhm.
But
Cool.
yeah, it's kind of like it isn't my primary instrument, so I
Right.
spend my time on my vocals and guitar because that's more pressing for the band. So
Yeah.
it's always a time premium, isn't it? That you'd love to be able to scratch all those musical itches. It'd be great to do
Mhm.
classical piano and playing all these different keys, but I'd have to drill all my scales and play songs in lots of different keys and get really used to all those,
Yeah.
like B flat. I'm like, I can't play B flat.
Oh man. I get it.
So
I do get it. Like for real.
yeah.
It's
So,
all good.
That's awesome. So growing up, what was kind of your introduction to metal? But what were some of your when you got into metal? What are some of your favorite bands that influenced what you do now?
yeah. So when I was growing up, I think that my introduction was really kind of more rock music early on. My mum introduced me to things that not particularly heavy. My mum introduced me to like Phil Collins and Michael Jackson,
Hmm.
um, and kind of like so kind of roughly rock pop music.
Hmm.
And then I had drum lessons, and my drum teacher kind of showed me some more classic rock, so like Free and Golden Earring, I remember,
I love
and
those
some of these
guys.
classic British 70s rock bands. Real, and
Yeah.
probably a bit of Black Sabbath and perhaps AC/DC, just real classic stuff. And so I really enjoyed listening to a lot of that music. I think like later on in my teenage years, I was influenced more by kind of what was happening at the time. So when I was young, bands like Blink 182 and Sum 41 I was like, oh, right, this is interesting. This is a different sound. This is a different way of playing
Yeah.
guitar. So I quite enjoyed, and also still being quite sing-along music. I've always enjoyed a good melody. But then like some of the heavier bands, I do remember kind of like Bullet for My Valentine. Some of these
Yeah.
heavier bands.
Yeah.
And I do remember, I didn't really listen to them that much, but My Chemical Romance. These bands were very
Yeah.
big when I was young, and so they did kind of have an influence of like, oh, this is a bit heavier than Blink 182, and so I started listening to that, and I discovered maybe Trivium, and then the big change was I was listening to even I was just trying as much as I could. I was like, I discovered Thin Lizzy. I was loving Guns N'
Oh yeah.
Roses. I was like,
Didn't
oh, this
lose.
is great. And then this guy was like, oh, this song by Iron Maiden. I was like, I haven't listened to Iron Maiden, and he just looked at me like, you haven't listened to Iron Maiden. And he got
Yeah.
he went straight into his bag and pulled out Number of the Beast,
Oh,
the CD, and he was like, "You have to listen to this. You have to listen to this."
have you
And I
seen them
took it.
live?
Go on, say that
Have you
again.
seen them live now?
Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times live,
Yeah,
only a couple of times,
I've seen
unfortunately.
them
But
a few times. They're amazing live shows.
oh, it's
Dang.
I
That's
saw them recently in
So,
Manchester.
so Number of the
They're
Beast has changed your life, huh?
dang.
Number of the
I've
Beast.
never seen
Yeah,
Iron Maiden live.
No way.
How about that?
I've,
I've seen so many bands live, and Iron Maiden is not one.
That's on your bucket
Oh,
list.
you think that that's one of the best bands ever. Yeah, I mean, I listened to Number of the Beast. It was just like a real special moment for me. Like I just kind of couldn't. I just didn't really know what was going on. I was like, this sounds so different because it was like quite because it's very 80s. I hadn't really got the idea of like what 80s heavy metal was, and so I was listening to it like some of it was like, this sounds like unusual. Like, I don't think I've heard this before. And it was almost like, I'm not quite sure that I like some of these quite, and in retrospect, I was kind of describing quite dated sounds, like the chorus guitars and things. And then I just grew to love it within like a day, probably. I just like, it just changed my life really
Nice.
musically. I was like, oh, I love this classic heavy metal
Yeah.
thing.
Well,
And so I couldn't, really from there, I started listening to lots more 80s heavy metal. So soon discovered Judas Priest.
Mhm.
And I listened to like some 80s bands like Rats and Poison and Winger. Quite liked Winger actually, some great songs. And then I kind of carried on with that. Then I kind of eventually just went backwards and backwards and started listening to more of these 70s bands.
the big
Um,
difference since a lot of those older bands is that a lot of those guys are classically trained.
Yeah.
And a lot of these newer bands, they're not. I'm not saying that they're not making good music. It's just different, and you can tell the difference. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like the 70s was the age of virtuosity. Like it was only
Mhm.
the culture in music education was only the people with really high aptitude in music will then go, and then those people we will train them to be the absolute best musicians.
Mm.
And what happened was, what we saw in the 60s and 70s, what happened in the UK, we just had some phenomenal musicians and just so many of them. You see all these prog bands. You see Gentle Giant. I don't know if you heard Gentle
Oh, yeah.
Giant, the 70s.
I have their
And
album.
I've heard
you
of
look
them.
at the playing, and you're like, this is no one plays like this anymore. This is a, this is like 10 levels above what you would expect a musician
Yeah,
to be able to do.
they're in the vein of Yes, like that type of prog rock.
Yeah, but I
Mm.
just think particularly like Gentle Giant, and because they had some avant-garde things as well. But I think I listened to that band. I'm like, this is a completely different universe. The type of musician that is required for this music they don't exist anymore. And that the 70s was the age of virtuosity really, and that's kind of how it affected music. And yeah, I know what you mean, like classically trained and everything trained, jazz and classical, and it was just yeah, it's unbelievable really. The things you see these prog bands in particular, what they're able to do, it just blows my mind really sometimes.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, as far as your style of music, um, I can definitely tell like some of your influences. But as far as when you all, so especially like the first album and the first couple of albums, was there a template as far as band music or style of subgenre of metal, whatever that you gravitated towards, and were like, okay, this is the style of music we're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, I think even leading up to the first album,
Mhm.
um, there was a big band. It's kind of a bit odd, really, but a band that was what we thought. Actually, we want to capture some of that for us. We were listening to a band called Pagan Altar,
Mhm.
uh, and so with Pagan Altar, I mean, particularly, because from the first song, I was writing songs about God and things like that. And so it was kind of unusual to be using, but just purely musically, um,
Yeah.
we in particular the Mythical Magical album, which was much later, like older songs but re-recorded, and we just found out we just love this kind of medieval magical sound, particularly like yeah, we couldn't quite put our finger on it, but quite magical, magical sounding guitar lines,
Mhm.
kind of like folky and medieval. Like we want to capture some of that, but make it heavy and still keep a bit of Thin Lizzy and still keep a bit of
Right.
um,
Right.
Iron Maiden and the Judas Priest. And so
Yeah.
yeah, Judas Priest meets Pagan Altar really was the plan.
Dude, this is crazy because I just discovered them today.
Oh, did you? Right.
So, I mean, this is like almost off the cuff or whatever, but of course, people that have been like watching these videos for a while know I'm working on an album with a new band. And I'm kind of doing what you did, like doing all the instruments and then letting other people play on the stuff. Anyway, the new song that I'm working on um, is kind of a folk type of song, and I love like groups like Amon and Mark and stuff like that. But I was like, let me just see what happens when I type in like folk metal or pagan metal. So Pagan Altar was like one of the first one of the
Wow.
first bands that came up on Apple Music. So I listened to a few of their songs today and I was like, wow. Um, this is just something interesting. The interesting fact, I was like, a lot of this music, a lot of the kind of folk music and pagan music and metal is in the key of D minor.
Yes, yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, so a lot of folk songs are in that key. So
Mhm.
like like there's so many in D major and D minor, but yeah, particularly
Mhm.
like you listen to like sea shanties and things like that. There's so many D minor songs. It's partly because of the flute. The flutes are in that
Okay,
key. I
gotcha,
think like you can get like an Irish flute, and most of them I think are in D, perhaps. And but
gotcha.
yeah, I played in folk. I've gone to like folk nights, and most of the songs D major, just in D, or D, not necessarily major, but just in D. Because the thing is, when you're working in folk music, it's not necessarily just classical. The scales are like we're using
Right.
modes, right? Scales. So like the Dorian mode isn't necessarily just particularly. It's not classical major or minor. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's like D. Um, yeah, D's a big thing. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
interesting.
that's wow, that's a fun fact. See, look at that. You get education on these.
Right, right. Um, so let's get something clear just because I've seen people asking. So, are you, Colin, a Christian?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Is Witch Hazel a Christian band?
Well, that's a difficult question,
Ah,
to be honest, because so the thing is, I don't think that question is a clear cut, and fair enough if some people think it's a clear cut question, but personally, I don't think it's a clear. It all. I suppose my question would be: it all depends on what you mean by a Christian band.
mm,
Like Witch Hazel has two Christian members, and Witch Hazel, because I'm Christian and I write the music, we perform Christian music. I
see,
would
Yes.
that's where
suppose.
I totally get that. It's like Wasp. That band, there's only one member that's a believer, and he's
Right,
the
yeah.
lyricist, right? So that to me is the one of the most important defining things
Of course.
in the band. So
Yeah.
here's a question: how if you're a Christian, I can't even say this with a straight face. How can you have the name of a band with the name Witch in it?
I know. I was going to ask that question too. So
so
you knew it was coming.
so for
Damn
the
it.
Yeah.
people for the fans out there that don't know what Witch Hazel is, explain that to them, please.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I suppose I don't know whether it's more I get this asked by Americans more,
Yeah.
but I think that might be my experience. Like why has it got witch in, like, particularly with the Y, but it's an old English spelling of witch, but witch hazel is a plant and it's a medicinal herb. And I think it's quite a good name for our
Yeah.
band, I believe,
I love it.
because our music is healing, and I've always felt a bit like that. I can't really imagine life without music. I mean, just for example, like we see in Revelation, obviously it's John's dream and it's very
Right.
figurative, but like Jesus has choirs and music around him.
Yes.
That's
So
the
much
type of
music in
God that he is. So even in paradise, we have music, and it's like it's so just crucial and important. I just feel like it's just inherently we all have a voice, like we can all sing. So yeah, musical healing, and so I wanted our music to be positive. I did, because there is a lot of darkness in heavy metal, and a lots of it is showbiz, and lots of it is kind of dramatic, and I actually kind of understand a lot of that stuff and the drama behind it all. But I wanted to do something that was more me, and it felt like I want to do something positive. I've always felt like I want to do something positive. I want to do something that makes everyone in the band feel good, makes me feel good about what we're doing, and makes the listeners feel good. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh well, I mean, it's not in the same genre, but there are bands like with names like First Aid Kit, and that with the idea that our music is an ointment. And I'm sure there's a band called Ointment somewhere.
I love
Like just
that meaning. Yeah, it's like witch hazel because music is healing. I mean that's I've never I guess I didn't think of it in those terms, but that makes a lot of
Right.
sense, and I love it.
Whole
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Yeah, and also like a big the English spelling, it puts us in that different universe. It puts us in a parallel universe with the old English spelling. What we think of today, because some people think, oh, witch hazel, what you put in your aftershave, heal your skin, but actually that's just distilled witch hazel. Like the old, like people used to think witch hazel had almost magical properties, and so I want to put the band more in that universe. So
Hmm.
English spelling puts it in that. So we're an English band. We want it to sound old English, as well.
Yeah, that's good. So I know you've had quite a few albums. Like what year did y'all actually start?
I think it was 2010 when we formed the band. Yeah.
So a little over a decade. That's right at a decade. So you got
Yeah.
Witch Hazel, Surrender was your demo. Then you came out with a Truth. You got Prelude, a Sojourner, Pentecost. 1, 2, and 3. So kind of what was your journey with getting that first demo out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I can't quite remember whether the band name came first or whether the song Surrender came first, but Surrender was the song that I wrote first for the band. And we still sometimes play that song after all these years. We still play it. It might have to be retired because there's lots of people that don't know it now, which is crazy because we've been
Oh,
around for so long. Um,
do
oh,
the current band members know the song? Like, could they play it?
oh yeah, we play it. Yeah, we play
Okay,
it. It's,
nice.
but I think we're getting so many songs now where we have to start making some choices.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just getting all these messages while with me.
Because you're
But
famous.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know how to turn them off actually, to be honest. But anyway, yeah. So I think it was. I was listening to a lot of kind of like those like Pagan Altar, Thin Lizzy, Jethro Tull, um, and yeah, Thin Lizzy was a big thing, particularly when you listen to the song Witch Hazel, which was the second song I wrote for the band. You can hear a lot of the Thin Lizzy. I wanted kind of more of a twin
Yeah.
lead for that song, but I think Surrender's a lot more new wave of British heavy metal, and its sound. It
Yeah.
sounds more like an old demo or something. And so yeah, I mean. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago. I can't remember
I
what I was
yeah,
thinking.
I think I hear a lot of a mixture of I would say Thin Lizzy and Black Sabbath
Hmm.
influences in
Yeah,
there. Which
yeah, it's definitely.
Valid. Oh yeah, valid. Totally valid. And it kind of reminds me also like, you might not remember Blackstone Cherry. You ever heard them? The
Yeah,
song?
I met them at Manchester Airport. I met that band.
Really?
oh wow.
Yeah, they were outside Manchester Airport, and they had a flight cancelled, and we were chatting to them. We were like, and actually, I was speaking to the guy who was the father of the guitarist, I think. And I
Hmm.
was like,
Oh
oh,
wow.
and he's like, what band do you? And it was a band called Witch Hazel. He's like, oh, I've heard of Witch Hazel.
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
really?
That's pretty cool.
Man, how cool is that?
That Jay's like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
heard of this band? He's like, yeah, I hung out with him.
I
outside
love it.
Manchester Airport. Yeah,
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 I absolutely love it. So here's something that I've noticed. You all do a lot of like guitar harmonies in your music, and I think that's really cool. So what influenced you to kind of go that route? Now, of course, like when I think of guitar harmonies and metal overall, like one of the biggest songs I think about is "The Trooper" by Iron Maiden, of course. Songs like
yeah,
that, or even let's see what else. That's another song like that's coming to my mind. Oh, "Master of Puppets" by Metallica, of course. Like there's some
yeah,
like harmonies in there or whatever. So, but yeah, like it seems like a regular part of what you all do, which I think is super
yeah.
cool. So, what influenced you to go that route?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the I think I was in a band called Eliminator. I mean, obviously, I knew this from listen to Thin Lizzy and I Maiden and Judas Priest and bands like this.
Mhm.
But I was in a band called Eliminator. Actually, no, but even before that band, I was in my first band. We had a band called Lake of Fire.
Okay.
Um, so that was kind of like some of those songs were kind of the training ground. I forgot to mention that actually. Yeah, so we had a band called Lake of Fire, and we only played locally in the Lancashire area. But and Jack was our drummer. He was our long-time drummer in Wytch Hazel. He was a drummer in that band Lake of Fire.
Cool.
So I think we just soon discovered that when you play a lead line and then the other guitar harmonizes, I mean, when you're in a room with another guitarist and you harmonize, you go, whoa,
Yeah.
that's special. When you experience, like, it's just you can't help but smile every time you play something. The other guitarist harmonizes it, and you go, "Oh, this is nice." These two separate, it's like a live stereo spread of harmony. And I don't know, there's something special about an overdriven guitar harmonizing more than a vocal, more than a keyboard, more than any other instrument. Because I love rock music so much, I actually think it's the best instrument for harmonies. It just sounds so like soaring and great. So I don't really think I don't break the formula. I just think it always sounds good, and it probably always will sound good. And it's interesting. You sometimes play with the harmonies, but it's we're quite formulaic. We do lots of minor thirds, harmonies, and minor sixths. So occasional fourth and fifth passing note to make it fit in the scale and things like that, and the chords. But yeah, I just love it. I can't get enough of guitar harmonies. Twin leads are my love language.
Yeah. Yeah. Shoot, mine too.
So for me, I heard your song Spirit and Fire off of Pentecost 3, and I was hooked. Like, I've been a fan ever since. I think I have 4 albums on vinyl that I got through the US distribution channel, which is what is that called? Are you still with that company in the US?
So at the moment, it might have been a different one a while ago. I can't remember whether we had one, and then we had Riding Easy Records,
That's
and
who I was
now
thinking. Yeah.
yeah. So now we Metal Blade are our distribution in the US now.
Wow.
I
That's
love it. Love
fantastic.
it. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
they're great.
so yeah, when I heard that song, I've been a fan ever since, and like I said, I've bought multiple albums now. But what was the inspiration behind that song, and how did that song form?
Yeah, I mean, so I think on the first album, I did a lot of songs where I really like pulled scripture directly into the lyrics. And I feel like I've got so much to say and so many songs. I'm always writing songs, and that's you probably
Yeah.
see with the amount of releases. I'm quite prolific. I can't really get enough of songwriting. I just feel I've got loads of things to say. But I think after Prelude, I did a lot more introspective songwriting, whereas like this is what I'm going through, this is how I feel, with scriptural references often.
Hmm.
But then you see songs like Dry Bones and songs like Spirit and Fire, where I'm just going, I want to write a song about
Yeah.
this passage. And Spirit and Fire, a lot of the lyrics are lifted from, I mean, some of it's just kind of ESV or something, but some of the lyrics are directly lifted from I don't know what it's called, Amplified or maybe the Street
Yeah,
Bible.
Amplified Bible. Hmm.
Yeah, so I think it might have been the Street Bible or something like that. So I actually, some of the lines I think are directly lifted from the Street Bible because I liked the phrase on that line. But yeah, I think I think I quite like the New Living Translation. Sometimes it kind of not quite as descriptive, but it kind of makes a bit more logical sense when you're writing lyrics. So I think I had about 3 different Bible versions in front of me for Spirit and Fire, and yeah, and the lyrics felt like they wrote themselves really, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think it happened quite quickly. That song, I seem to remember.
That's inspirational. Awesome.
Yeah,
Super inspirational. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about touring and concerts and shows and stuff. I know that it's 2024 and touring season is coming up. You don't have anything planned as far as shows and not only your area but around the world,
Yeah, like
states or anything?
for instance, like Kentucky or South Carolina in the United States.
Right, exactly, right.
yeah, yeah. So we were in a couple of weeks. We're in Germany. So we seem to go to Germany quite a lot, but it makes loads of sense. It keeps making sense. Our booking agents are German, so yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But it's a full metal Ostessen festival. I actually did a talk there last year in the church service. So, and they've got links with, they seem to all be all mates. Like, so, like the Elements of Rock Festival and Full Metal Ostessen and what's the one in Oslo? Nordic Fest. They're all kind of
That's a huge
friends with each other. They're all like a network of
Yeah.
Christian metal
So,
promote
have you
bands.
played with Theocracy at some of these?
Not yet, not
Oh, wow.
yet. Sometimes nearly happens, but yeah, I think we were nearly played with Narnia. It's a shame, really, because
Yeah.
Narnia were meant to play in Oslo at Nordic Fest, but they had to kind of strip it down to 2 days. I think that was the gig. It might have been that one where, yeah. So we end up being the headliner. I think that
Man,
was the one.
that Theocracy, Witch Hazel, and Narnia tour would be killer.
Yeah,
That
that
would
would
Yeah,
be a thing.
I
that
want
would
to,
be
I
that
want to
would be
see
a
that.
2024 epic tour right there. I would be down for that.
Yeah. So yeah, we're in Germany, and then a couple of weeks later, we're actually in Houston, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're at Hell's Heroes Fest
Okay.
in Houston. So they basically, and the thing is, it's so expensive to
Oh,
for a
yeah.
band in the UK to tour. But they basically, just gave us an offer that we just couldn't refuse.
So when
Made it
you
really
tour
attractive.
internationally, do you carry all your own instruments, or do you get some when you get there?
So yeah, for this show, again, they're making it very unprohibitive, shall we say? They're making it very easy for us to play this show, and so yeah,
Amazing.
we're able to take our instruments, and yeah, like we would in any European show, but obviously with a longer flight. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a one-off show in Houston. We if they hadn't have offered us, to kind of cover everything and all the visas and everything, we just quite simply wouldn't be able to play the US. So this is
Right.
us dipping our toe in the US waters. But I'm pretty sure our visa lasts a year, so we hope that we can kind of come back. Really, we'll have to
Wait,
see.
so
Again, it's the
this your
offers really.
first? This is your first show in the U.S.?
Our first US
You're
show, and
kidding me!
Wow.
Look at that. We got history being
Wow.
made right here. That's
yeah,
Yes.
awesome.
so 22nd, 3rd of March.
That is
Wow, that's
beautiful,
awesome.
yo.
So when you're on tour, do y'all tour in a van, or like do you each have your own bus?
We
And
haven't actually done any of that. Like in the UK, the closest we've come is like 3 shows in a row, and we've done quite a lot of 2 shows in a row, and we just drive in like 1 or 2 cars, and either borrow some gear or like we played in London. There's only a 35-minute set, so our guitar tech from near London brought speaker cabs, and we brought our amplifiers and drums. We went in 2 cars, and yeah, so we kind of make it work like that. We don't, we haven't done the whole get in a van and play for 2 weeks,
oh,
but we're
okay.
hoping next year that we can make that happen. The thing is, for a band like us, the place that makes the most sense and that will make the most impact, and also financially, for our families and stuff, is to go to Germany for 2 weeks. It's
Yeah.
just so strong, the scene there for the type of music that we're doing.
I was going to ask
So
when
that's
you go like a weekend, you play 2 or 3 shows in a row or whatever.
yeah,
what's your favorite thing to eat on the road? Like you have a favorite snack or something that you always have with you or that you always get?
Yeah, so we have a rider, and I always ask for just any sort of meat,
Okay.
So like it was great to play in Greece with we had all sorts of different types of kebabs.
Oh, nice.
So I love all that. I love kebabs. I mean, we're all quite into our food, so if there's can be any um stone baked pizza, like a proper pizza oven, stuff like that, we're really into that. And we ate a pizza, and we actually had an airport. It was Milan. We didn't play there, but it was our connecting flight. So we had a pizza in Milan, which is great. It's
Very
like, oh,
nice.
you're saying about a pizza in Italy now.
Yeah.
I love Italian pizza, and we love,
Real deal.
yeah. But we're looking forward to barbecue in Texas.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
think there's pink.
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna be in for a treat there.
You really
Yeah,
will. Honest, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So we're gonna go Pinkertons, I think, in Houston. We've been recommended to us barbecue
Nice.
restaurant.
Cool. Super cool.
So
So
yeah, I because I don't. I mean, most of the week I don't eat bread and pasta and
Okay.
okay,
sugar,
makes
things
sense.
like that. I just eat meat and vegetables and low
Hmm.
sugar fruits and things like that.
Cool.
Uh,
Very good.
it's a hard diet because I sometimes just fall off the wagon really, because I get like it's like a medical, like I get reflux with carbohydrates.
Oh wow, I
So
understand.
it just solves my issues, because I have to take tablets otherwise. So I have to eat low carb for my stomach.
Yeah, but it's
But
good
yeah,
for your voice too. It's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
it's good for just energy levels, really.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just really hard to stick to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So we were talking. We mentioned, of course, Theocracy of Narnia. I'm interested in like what kind of Christian bands you listen to. Are there any bands that are inspiring you and your music right now?
Yeah, I mean, I do get asked this, and in all honesty, I don't listen to loads and loads of Christian metal. I
Hmm.
really, I really I kind of listen. I mean, I suppose, I mean, maybe, I don't know, what is Warlord Catholic essentially, isn't it?
Right, I
I'm
know,
not sure.
right?
I'm not
Maybe, I
sure.
don't know.
Right. We'll consider we'll say for sake of conversation Christian, you know.
Yeah, so like Warlord, I listen to a bit. But yeah, like I mean, I've always liked Striper. I've seen them live, and they were even better than their records, and it was just
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
yeah, Michael Sweet's vocals were just
Yeah.
fantastic, and then, yeah, the twin guitars. I mean, I've always liked. As soon as it was actually a guy who was in a band. He was like, "Wait a second, you never heard Striper? Like, you're a Christian, you like heavy metal, like." You listen to this. And he wasn't a Christian, but he was
Can
like,
you
I think
be a Christian and have not heard Striper?
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
he was like, yeah, because I came up with one of the songs for Lake of Fire, this band, which sounded like "To Hell with the Devil," the
Uh,
chorus. He's like, I thought you copied that. Like, I'm surprised you haven't, you know, haven't heard this band. So yeah, he put me on to Striper. So yeah, I kind of listened to
Super
them.
cool.
But yeah, like not a whole lot, to be honest. I sometimes what was I listening to the other day? Some 80s Saint I was listening to.
oh, nice.
Uh,
Yeah, Saints.
um,
Yeah.
and then what's that band I haven't listened to for like 6 months? There's another band.
Baron
What
Cross,
was it? Yeah, I've listened to a bit of that, but
Blood
yeah,
Good. I don't know. I'm just throwing them out.
what was
Right.
it?
Mortification. No, it's
Yeah.
Oh
Tourniquet.
yeah, I listened to Mortification.
Tourniquet.
Yeah, I can't remember what they were called actually now. But yeah, so yeah, a bit of Saint, kind of bands a bit like that. Some of the lesser known kind of Christian metal bands. But to be honest, not a whole lot, because I'm spending my time listening to Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, because I
Yep.
love that stuff. It's fine, isn't it? But
Mhm.
yeah, and to be honest, like I listen to more non-metal Christian music than I do Christian metal music.
Interesting.
A lot of it's just because of church. Growing up
Yeah,
around
of
church,
course.
we're always playing anything from hymns to contemporary music. I listen to a little bit of Maverick City music, and
Maverick
I think,
City is amazing. Yes.
yeah, I really like Maverick City. I think it's probably one of my favorites at the moment.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
so good. When it
yeah,
comes to that
I really
genre
like
of music,
gospel.
they're the top. Sure.
Yeah, and then I really like gospel and stuff anyway. So, I've always been kind of as a drummer as well, like the
Oh
gospel
yeah.
stuff. It's so enjoyable to play.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've just grown up around, we've got Worship Central in the UK.
Okay.
Um, and then, we've always sung all the kind of big Hillsong, the Big Bethel, and all those big
Yeah.
hits.
Mhm.
And it's a funny subject, isn't it, really? Because like there's probably, I won't get into it too much, but sometimes you look at some of those churches and it's a little bit worrying. But I suppose at the same time, if you just take the songs, you think actually that isn't the church, that's just a songwriter. And I think, credit where
Exactly.
credit's
Yeah.
due. So I kind of take it for what it is. Um, I have some concerns about Hillsong, for example, but some of the songs that have been written there are
I think
fantastic.
we all had those concerns.
So some amazing songs, and they've had some great songwriters. You can't blame the songwriters for being connected to a church. It could happen to any of us, couldn't it? So
Yep.
yeah.
So, do you have any newer, say within the last 5 years, favorite bands that you're really into?
Newer bands. I mean, like I suppose just in the same genre. I mean, I have listened to a bit of I've enjoyed All Sons and Daughters, and I've enjoyed Maverick City Music in terms of fairly new bands.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, quite a while ago, Ascend the Hill was quite good. But I mean, I'm quite kind of, but in terms of contemporary music, I'm always discovering things. But in terms of newer bands, I listen to a lot of kind of heavy metal stuff. So, I mean, in the UK, I really enjoy Seven Sisters, Phantom Spell. Um, I'm really enjoying a band called Parish. And in Sweden, um, there's Halas, and yeah, there's a bunch of bands in Sweden, but Halas is up there for me. In the US, I like a band called Night, which is kind of like a blackened heavy metal band. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of new heavy metal bands that I'm kind of into, and often just playing classic heavy metal, but new bands. So they're new, but they don't sound new. So that's kind of a lot of the music I'm listening to is newer bands, kind of doing what we're doing. It's nice to be part of something that feels like a bit like a scene. You know,
For sure.
bands that are doing what
Mhm.
Wytch Hazel are doing essentially.
I'm not sure how long they've been around, but I'm a fan of Sabaton from Germany.
Mhm.
Have you heard them?
Yeah, I think a lot of people pronounce it Sabaton, but I'm not sure whether it's right.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah.
Know exactly. Yeah.
I'm from South Carolina. What do I know?
Yeah, yeah, but
Oh
yeah, like a
man.
lot, yeah, Sabaton.
Sabaton.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've listened to Sabaton and I couldn't really get on with it as much. I think
Okay.
it's kind of, I think some of the music you can hear the Iron Maiden, but I think the thing is, I'm more picky about heavy metal than I am about any genre. So like
Understand?
I'm probably what some people will call an elitist because I'm really into like music production, things like that. I mean I don't have
Yeah.
the skill, but I like the sonic quality. I think things like
Yes. Yes.
Sabaton, I think some of the bands sound too contemporary for my tastes. Like the production value isn't kind of quite to my taste really. So it kind of affects my experience of the music. Like melodically, there's loads of Iron Maiden, but perhaps like the production on the album isn't really well, it's not my favorite thing, you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's Sabaton's a good example of that. Like it's
Okay.
probably why I haven't continued listening to them.
I was wanting to hopefully I was gonna get to see them this year. They're touring with Judas Priest.
Oh
Mhm.
right, yeah.
And Judas
Interesting.
Priest has been on my bucket list, so whoever
Yeah, mine
I'd
too.
be down
Mine.
for it, you know. You hadn't seen them either?
I haven't seen
I've
them either.
yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
Priest a couple of times. They're both amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really good.
Colin, I think what you said about just being a producer and being a metal elitist, I'm definitely the same way. I do gravitate more towards like progressive and death metal for sure. But
Yeah,
I listen to it all, and I pay attention to vocals. I've even told a few Christian metal vocalists that will remain unnamed that they should have me produce some of their vocals on albums
yeah,
because I hear so
yeah.
much, and I
The
have
thing is, like,
heard pitch too. So
yeah, I think it's like I'll listen to some. This thing is like I'm not. It's not necessarily just I only like 70s and 80s albums
right.
quality. I'll still listen to new stuff. It's just few and far between. So, for example, I've enjoyed like Gojira from France. I've
Yeah, oh
enjoyed
yeah,
the
absolutely.
album, and the production's there, and
Productions
there's a
Yeah.
level of
crazy.
creativity
I
that
enjoy
that
that band too, yeah.
yeah, it's captured my interest because there's creativity there, and the drumming's really interesting as well. The songs kind of can be quite unusual, but not they don't go too far with the progressive side of it. It's very listenable, and I like some extreme music. I mean, a lot of it. I like black metal, to be honest, is my top
Oh,
extreme genre.
okay.
Um, some of it can be problematic, can't it? But yeah,
Yeah,
Love it.
have you heard
Love it.
there's a band that I recently listened to a podcast on, Wings of Steel from Europe. Have you heard them?
Wings of Steel. I've heard of them, but I haven't heard the
Yeah,
music.
they're like a new wave of British heavy metal style. A newer band that has that old sound and all. So
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
another one that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, things like unfortunately, probably one of the worst bands. The band Dissection, pretty bad. Yeah, so like, I think the guy killed himself. I think it's pretty
Wow.
dark, but musically, I feel myself drawn to it, but I can't. I think every Christian has to make a decision, don't they, about this? It's
Sure.
you've got to make your own call. But I don't listen to it very often. But I sometimes listen to it and be like, like musically, there's so much here that I can take. And there's another band, problematic in a political way. I think there's a band called Mgła from Poland.
Yeah.
Again, like problematic musically, but again, like if you just taking it for the fruit and taking it for what it is,
Hmm.
it can be very inspiring musically, but yeah, you've got to kind of make that decision. It's a hard line to toe, really, because you don't want to be, even if you feel like, oh no, it's not affecting me. If you spend your week listening to black metal, I think personally I would feel a bit like, oh, I'm feeling a bit a bit down.
Right.
So
But then you
I
got to
think I
listen to
like the
some Wytch
energy
Hazel.
level of that music.
You can only listen to so much black metal before you got to put in a Wytch Hazel CD. You know.
Hillsong, just the
Real song.
complete.
All right, I need to hear
Black
something
metal.
in the major key, something.
Yeah, my Spotify is messed up because it's like it's sort of like Bethel and then like black metal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen so many black metal bands live. It's ridiculous. Most of the
yeah,
major ones for sure. It's crazy. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think. There's you know what? That might be all the major questions. Let's talk about Christ overall. I know one question I love asking is, what's your favorite thing about being a Christian?
Yeah, oh, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Yeah, what's my favorite thing about being a Christian? I mean, there isn't kind of I mean, when you ask that question, I suppose my initial response is that being a Christian, I don't initially think of my favorite thing. I probably think about my least favorite things about being a Christian. You answered the
I
question in
love
a different way. It's the opposite of what you asked. But when thinking about what's my favorite or the opposite of my favorite, I have a bigger list of things that are not my favorite thing about being a Christian. Because I have like a lot of like big questions. Like, obviously, I believe that it's a situational thing that has happened. It's not something you don't unadopt yourself. Like I'm adopted.
Right,
That's
right,
the language of
right.
the Bible, isn't it? When you become a Christian, you become adopted. That language is quite helpful for me and that
Mhm.
relation. And so it's like you don't unadopt yourself, but you don't. But then there's also like a lot of big questions as well, and that's one of my least favorite things about being a Christian. All that said, like if I wasn't a Christian, I'd have a whole load of different questions. I'm a very questioning, introspective person a lot of the time. So, but yeah, one of my favorite things, I suppose, is just a sense of purpose. Like, I think life can be a bit depressing without a sense of purpose, and so you've got that sense of purpose is very unique,
Mhm.
and it gives me a kind of it gives me a sense. Yeah, it's meaning and purpose.
Yeah,
Those are they're kind of those are big words and very
Yeah.
yeah, it's good
significant
stuff.
to me. So I'd say those are kind of quite crucial because that affects your everyday life, meaning and purpose. Otherwise, like the opposite, there's nothing in between for me. It's Christianity or nihilism. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
And so it's my favorite thing is not languishing in nihilism. I suppose is
Good.
one of my absolute favorite things. Is that yeah, like everything does like it's everything matters or nothing matters. I'm kind of quite extreme, and so the sense of no, actually everything matters and my purpose, everything you do affects myself and everyone around me and the whole world. So yeah, it's the opposite of nihilism. That's my kind of thing I cling to a lot my day to day as
Good.
a Christian.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I think, when you started saying that, it reminded me of like what my least favorite thing about being a Christian is. Because I think the first person is like approached it from that angle. I think for me, like, I think, trying to measure up to the holiness of Christ is, it's just something that we can't even think of. It's like, what?
Impossible, yeah.
Thank God for the Holy Spirit, obviously, but yeah, just trying to measure up in any way, and then just knowing that God, has has chosen to dwell in us. It's a really powerful it's a powerful thing, man. And it's an
Yeah,
awesome responsibility to trust.
yeah. I mean, I feel like more and more we are just the same as Israel in that we
Mhm.
just keep getting it wrong over and
Yeah.
over again. Just
Yep.
realize, you just keep,
Hmm.
I'm just consistently forget,
Yeah.
consistently up. Like that's just like we sometimes look and like, what are you doing, Israel? What are you like? What? And you're like, actually, no, that's exactly what I do every day.
Yeah.
That's me. Like so, yeah. Like we're not even anywhere near, are we? So
No.
yeah, that's the point. That's why we actually need Jesus. Like the thing is, when you see Christians behaving so badly, myself included,
Hmm.
like we guys, like that's the point. That's why
Hmm.
we actually need. Like if we were great and perfect, we wouldn't need Jesus, but we actually do, don't
Right.
we? So
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well said. Yeah. If you had the power to give every person a virtue, what would you give them?
Oh, the power to give every person a virtue. Um, that's a very good question. Um,
Thanks,
yeah,
Jim.
I think every single person a virtue. I suppose. I think the virtue I would give every single person on the planet would be um, just the innate ability to just be the opposite of selfish. So just 100% selflessness. Because if everyone was looking after everyone, it would solve
That's
like a
good.
whole load of problems. So just the innate ability to be 100 wholeheartedly selfless, like Jesus, I suppose. Because I'm more and more aware of how deeply selfish I am, and
Mm,
like everyone is. We've all
yeah.
fallen short, haven't we? It's just so true, isn't it? Like the older I get, the more I realize my own failings, and yeah, we're just like I'm just so selfish. Like I really am.
No,
It
that's
just
good because
Earth.
we ask these questions and we don't know. It's always something a little different. That's
yeah
Oh yeah.
awesome. I love it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it'd be the opposite of that. Opposite selflessness. Yeah.
Mhm.
Good.
Cool. Well, yeah. So let's I guess as we close, I'll let Jimmy ask his infamous question, but let's talk about like um coming attractions. I know you may have some announcements coming up, so give us the church announcements for Wytch Hazel.
Your bulletin board for the band.
As far as new music or I know we talked about touring or whatever, but what's going on in the world of the
Yeah.
band.
Yeah. So we've got some new music coming out very soon in the next few months.
Hmm.
That's exciting.
Hmm.
We're also working on a brand new album.
Awesome.
And so, in that respect, there isn't really a timeline.
Hmm.
But I'm always thinking as soon as possible, with
Yeah.
a lot of material. Yeah, well, pretty much all material written. But that's kind of very much the beginning of the Wytch Hazel process. I've said a lot of times, like, even once the album's written, it can take up to a year just to kind of
Hmm.
get it recorded. And so, yeah, new album out, who knows when, but
Right.
if it's up to me, as soon as possible. But yeah, we definitely got brand new music happening in the next few months.
Hmm.
And yeah, and,
Cool.
and like lots of cool gigs. We've got like a gig every month. We're playing in Germany, US, France. We've got a show in the UK. We're playing the Czech Republic for the first time
Nice.
with
Nice.
Judas Priest
Super
headline.
cool. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
You know what? Oh, that actually, when you said that, it actually just reminded me of this. I mean, I think about myself. I'm constantly writing music. I mean, constantly writing music to the point that, like, of course, I just started releasing music, which is weird as far as for myself, instead of just like giving people music and producing it. But like, do you have songs laying around? Like, do you have a library of songs laying around that you haven't released, or do you pretty much say, okay, I'm writing this and then I'm gonna record it and I'm gonna release it? Like, how does that work?
yeah, yeah. So I've got sorry, I just put my phone on charge.
Okay.
So I I've got quite a lot of like like song elements, like
Mm.
kind of a section, like usually two, sometimes one, but one or two song ideas, often no lyrics. And so I've got like a folder of perhaps 100, 150 song ideas.
Can
Um,
relate. Absolutely.
yeah, so I've got like a lot of, and the thing is, a lot of it just doesn't get used, but it's just helpful to get it out. And sometimes I'll be writing, I'll go, wait a second, I remember recording that idea, and I'll pull an idea, and this is always, I just record everything. Um, and it, you know, probably every other day there's a new song idea, and whether I'll be at home or I'll be at my music space. And so yeah, and I've got like a whole. I actually wrote a full worship album, more contemporary. So that's sat in a
Super
folder,
cool. Super
written with demos. So I've got a whole album not released. I have this kind of secret solo album EP as well, which is kind of something I wrote maybe 8 years ago. Kind of like a
cool.
solo folk project.
Well,
I kind of
sounds
look back
exciting,
and kind of it was helpful at the time, but it's not something I want to release because I don't think
I
it's up to
understand.
standard.
It's a
But
personal thing, huh?
you know, it's something that I kind of like. I just sit there, and it was part of what I wanted to do at the time. And so, yeah, I've got loads of stuff. Really, it's almost like too much stuff. But it's the hard work is just kind of making that into fruition and making it into a release. And I've kind of got better at that and you can probably tell like the releases are more frequent now. Because yeah, we had our Christmas single, we've got this single coming soon. I hope a new album, you know, in an
Cool.
ideal world, a new album this year. I've got just loads of stuff. I'd like to do an album a year, really. Like I want to kind of I feel like we do something better every time. And so like it's almost like each
Absolutely.
album is necessary. It's necessary to move the band forward. It's like I don't want to necessarily wait. I might do it at some point, but I don't really want to wait 3 years for the perfect thing. Like I want to see that process through, reflect and improve, and see it through, reflect and improve. And it's important to me to release more albums because I think we improve every time.
I think that
I
makes
love it.
perfect sense. I mean, look in the '70s, they were releasing an album every year and a half, and people don't really do. They're releasing a song here and a song there. Um,
Yeah,
but the more you can put out like that, it grows your fan base and everything. And I think this year is going to be big for you, man. I'm excited. You got your first US show, your first Chess
Yeah.
show.
yeah. No,
Uh,
it is exciting. This year's really
yeah,
exciting, you know,
new album,
particularly
all that.
Texas. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it'd be great to get a new album out as well because I think it's a bit of a statement as well because there isn't a lot of people doing full albums every year at our level that aren't, you
Yeah,
know, huge bands that have
and
all
I mean,
the.
I would
It's,
say
we all work full time. It's really hard work and quite
Metal Blade releasing your albums in the US is huge, man.
yeah,
That's going to give you access to a wider audience.
yeah.
Love Hell Blade, man.
It's really good, and they post on all their channels as well. So
Yeah,
it
well
feels like
deserved.
every time we have a step up. Yeah,
Yeah.
Metal Blade was a big thing. Yeah,
Do
it's
you,
good.
do you have any sponsors or ministry partners or anything like that you want to give a shout out to?
So we have our fan club have been really our fan club have been amazing because they really support what we're doing. I say what we're doing. A big part, like I said before, like I manage the band. I do all the accounting for the band, all the boring stuff. I do all the management, logistics. I deal with the label. I deal with the booking agents, and I write all the songs, and I kind of like organize all the recording and
Yeah,
the
man,
rehearsal
amazing.
space, and so and a lot of the costs as well. And so the fan club, help with like for example, like our rehearsal costs every week, which is the same as our recording costs now. That's all covered by the fan club,
Oh, wow.
and my income one day a week is funded by the fan club, and so like they're amazing, like they're just the
Yeah.
best. And so yeah, big shout out to them. We're also quite a new thing, hot off the press, which will be released soon. Is we're going to be endorsed by Vintage Guitars. So we've signed an agreement, so that'll be announced relatively soon. So yeah, that's news as well. So guitar endorsement as well. So yeah, there's loads of exciting stuff. But yeah, big shout out to Vintage Guitars and the Wytch Hazel fan club because they're big support.
Man, that's awesome. Well, so is there anything or what can the Christian metal group and the metal community do to support your band? What can we do to help you?
The easiest thing that everyone can do, which is completely free and really quick, is just get to witchhazel.com and join the mailing list. It's completely free,
Nice.
and I don't send out loads. I mean, we're talking one email a month, perhaps two if it's important. So but it's just really important with changing social media platforms and the way algorithms change that we stay in contact with our fan base. So if everyone can sign up to that mailing list, it's super useful. And so there's that. But if people want to take things a step further, obviously there's lots of different options for um, anywhere between regularly streaming our music to buying physical records and all sorts. We got like a big range of merchandise on. If you just go to witchhazel.com/merch, there's a
Okay.
very big range of merchandise as well. But even further than that would be the monthly fan club as well. So there's like 4 tiers that people can check out.
Oh, nice.
And that link is on the website as well. So the best place for everyone to go is witchhazel.com. Join the mailing list for free. Anywhere between that, making a purchase or streaming our music to join the fan club. It's all on witchhazel.com. All the details are there. So that's the best way people can support us. It makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Very nice. Y'all check out those links down below. We'll
Right.
post the website and everything. Sign up for the email list. Man, I really appreciate your time.
Man, you rock, dude.
And we're gonna do everything we can to support you.
That's right.
That. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate it.
God bless you all.